everyone. I'm Teacher Peter Wanjala Namasaka, and I wish to welcome you for our C.R.E. lesson, whereby we are going to discuss about prophets. But before I just do that, I wish to remind you on the practices you are supposed to consider in order to assist in curbing the spread of this deadly virus that is corona. But kindly remain at home. If you are forced by circumstances to leave your home, then always put on your mask. Avoid also shaking people's hands. Maintain social distance. Regularly wash your hands using soap and water. Then something else, if you have a sanitizer, then the better. If you feel like coughing or sneezing, please use your toilet paper and dispose it immediately to the rightful and safe place. If you don't have a toilet paper, then always fold your arm like that. You can cough or sneeze there. Above all, let us continue praying, because I believe that it's only God that can normalize this situation. Having said that, now allow me to talk about the prophets, that is C.R.E, and I would like to talk about the prophets. Let me start by defining who a prophet is. A prophet is a man sent by God to give people his message or warn them to change their way of life. Now allow me to talk about Prophet Isaiah. Now Prophet Isaiah is a prophet of hope. He prophesied about the Messiah, that is Jesus, and he prophesied about a virgin being pregnant and giving birth to a child called Emmanuel. And you know, Emmanuel means God with us. Now allow me to talk about the names given to Jesus by Prophet Isaiah. Now these are the names that Prophet Isaiah referred to Jesus: Mighty God, Eternal Father, the Prince of Peace, Wonderful Counselor, Suffering Servant. And about Suffering Servant, you can get it from the book of Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6. He also prophesied that Jesus will set the captives free, heal the blind and the deaf, preach the good news, that Jesus will heal the brokenhearted, will be buried with the wicked and the rich. That Prophet Isaiah's lips were touched with a burning coal, and he started prophesying. He prophesied about the birth of John the Baptist also. And this one you can get it from the book of Isaiah chapter 40 verse 3 there. So that is about Prophet Isaiah. What my dear pupils, I would like you to notice that Prophet Isaiah was a prophet of hope. He was a prophet of hope. And I've said he talked about, or he prophesied about the birth, teaching, suffering, death, and resurrection of the Messiah. Now, my dear pupils, allow me to talk about another prophet, that is Prophet Jeremiah. Now, Prophet Jeremiah was the son of Hilkiah. He was called the prophet of doom because of telling the Israelites of the punishment that will befall them for their sinful nature. He was called to be a prophet at a very tender age, at the age of 18 years. And he complained about his age. He complained that he was young, and therefore he was not suitable to be a prophet. But God stretched his hand, touched his lips, and he started prophesying. He predicted the fall and destruction of the city of Jerusalem and the temple. And you remember, the city of Jerusalem was so important to the Israelites because this city had a temple, and in the temple we had the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant symbolized the presence of God. So you see, Jeremiah predicted about the destruction of this city of Jerusalem and the temple. Prophet Jeremiah also was put in a well. He was put in a well, and he was again put in prison because of telling God's people the truth. And this one you can get it from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 27, verse 11 to 21 there. You can also get the story about how Jeremiah was put in a well and later in prison in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 38 there. Prophet Jeremiah also prophesied about the killing of the baby boys below 2 years of age in Bethlehem of Judea, something that came to pass. Now, Prophet Jeremiah talked about the new covenant. And when we talk about a covenant, it's simply an agreement between two people or two parties. So this is exactly what Prophet Jeremiah said about the new covenant, that the rules will be written in people's hearts. Prophet Jeremiah also said that every person will be responsible for his or her sin. 2, 3, that the covenant will be between God and individuals. 4, that the new covenant will be for all nations, which means the new covenant will be universal. 5, that God will forgive people's sins and remember them no more. Now, my dear pupils, I want you to realize this, or to note this, that the old covenant was quite different because the rules were written on the stone tablet, whereas the new covenant was written in people's hearts. Now, the new covenant was fulfilled when Jesus came, suffered, died, and resurrected. So in other words, I want to say that what Prophet Jeremiah prophesied about the new covenant came to pass with Jesus. My dear pupils, now allow me to talk about Prophet Micah. Now, the story about Prophet Micah, you can get it from the book of Micah, chapter 5, verse 2 to 5 there. Now, Prophet Micah prophesied about the birth of Messiah in the small city of Bethlehem of Judea. So if you asked about a prophet who prophesied about the birthplace of Jesus, then it is Prophet Micah. He prophesied the birthplace of Jesus Christ. He is termed as a prophet of hope, following this message that he gave. My dear pupils, allow me to talk about Prophet Ezekiel. And if you want to get the story about Prophet Ezekiel, then you can always get it from the book of Ezekiel chapter 1, onwards. And then you can get it also in the book of Ezekiel chapter 37 there. Now, Prophet Ezekiel is also termed as a prophet of hope. Remember, the prophets who are known as prophets of hope were named so depending on the message that they gave. So Prophet Ezekiel was a prophet of hope, and he prophesied hope even to the dry bones in the valley. The dry bones became a strong army. The prophecy showed that God will unite the Israelites into a big, strong army and will give them back their land. Remember, the Israelites had been taken to exile, to slavery, and their land was taken away. And that is why Ezekiel prophesied about these dry bones, which became alive and became human beings and formed a very strong army. My dear pupils, now allow me to talk about Prophet Joel. Now, Prophet Joel is also termed as a prophet of hope. He prophesied about the coming of the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost. And this is something that came to pass, or came to happen. The prophecy happened when the disciples were rained on by the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost. And the Holy Spirit descended in form of strong wind and fire. Now, Prophet Hosea was asked by God to marry an adulterous woman, and that was Gomer. God was trying just to compare Hosea's marriage to the love he had towards his people, despite their sinful nature. My dear pupils, now allow me to talk about another very important prophet, and this is Prophet Amos. Now I want you to appreciate the fact that Prophet Amos was a prophet of justice, or he is termed as a prophet of justice. This was an advocate of the wicked people, an advocate of the poor people. He prophesied punishment to the wealthy people who practiced injustice and oppressed the poor. And he kept on reminding them that you people, you eat well, you sleep well, you drink, and whereas you are in the neighborhood, we have poor people who sleep hungry. And he said that God is going to punish them because of that. So Amos is known as the prophet of justice. And the story about Amos, you can get it from the book of Amos chapter 2 verse 6 to 8 there. My dear pupils, now allow me to talk about another very important prophet, and this is Daniel. The story about Daniel, you can get it from the book of Daniel chapter 3 verse 19 to 25 there. You can also get it from the book of Daniel chapter 6 onwards. Now, Prophet Daniel lived during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar ordered his officials to put Daniel's three friends, that is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, into a fire furnace for failing to worship a gold statue. But God protected them from fire. Now, Daniel used to pray 3 times in a day to God. King Darius ordered his officials to put Daniel into a den of lions for refusing to worship him. But God prevented the lions from feasting on him. When King Darius realized that Daniel was still alive, he ordered that all his people within his territory to start worshiping the God of Daniel. Now, what do we learn from that? That you see, God always protects the righteous. My dear candidates, now allow me to talk about another very important prophet, and that is Prophet Elijah. The story about Prophet Elijah, you can get it from the book of 1 Kings chapter 17, 18, chapter 19, and chapter 21. Now, Prophet Elijah hailed from Tishbe. He lived in Tishbe. He lived during the reign of King Ahab. And you see, King Ahab practiced what we call idolatry. He fought against idol worship in Israel. Now, allow me to talk about the miracles that Prophet Elijah performed. One, he multiplied oil and flour for the widow of Zarephath. He also multiplied oil. He also called for a drought that had lasted for 3.5 years. 3, he raised the son of the widow from the town of Zarephath. 4, during the Mount Carmel contest between Elijah and the worshippers of Yahweh and Baal, he called fire from heaven. 5, he killed 450 prophets of Baal at Mount Carmel. He also called off the drought. Another miracle is that he ran faster than the chariot that was carrying King Ahab. You remember, after killing the 450 prophets of Baal, King Ahab wanted to kill him. And King Ahab followed Prophet Elijah on a chariot. And you can imagine Elijah ran faster than a chariot. And no, this chariot was being pulled by a horse. You know how fast the horses are. Another miracle is that Prophet Elijah divided the waters of River Jordan. Another miracle is that he prophesied, he promised Elisha, he promised Elisha a double portion of his power, and indeed Elisha received it. My dear pupils, allow me now to talk about Prophet Elisha. And the book, the story about Prophet Elisha, you can get it from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 2, verse 19 there. You can also get it in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4, chapter 5, and chapter 6. You will get a whole story about this prophet of God called Elisha. Now, he asked for a double portion of his master's power, and his master was Elijah, and he indeed received it. Now, allow me to talk about the miracles performed by Prophet Elisha. He divided the waters of River Jordan. 2, he multiplied the oil for the poor widow who was in debt. 3, he prayed for the Shunammite woman to get a baby, and this one also happened. 4, he brought back to life the Shunammite woman's son. 5, he multiplied 20 loaves of bread, and 100 prophets of God fed on them. And in fact, we are told that we had some leftovers. Another miracle that was performed by Prophet Elisha is that he healed Naaman of his leprosy. You know, Naaman was a Syrian army officer, and he became healed. Another miracle that was performed by Elisha is that he also cast Gehazi. You know, Gehazi was a servant of Elisha, and he lacked integrity. You know, after healing Naaman, Naaman wanted to give some gifts to this prophet Elisha. But Elisha refused and told him that miracles are performed freely, and I cannot sell it, and I've given you freely. And Gehazi was there, and he decided later on to follow Naaman and ask for the gift, lying to Naaman that Elisha had changed his mind and therefore wanted the gifts. And when he came back, Elisha knew that something wrong happened, and he cursed. When he asked Gehazi where he was coming from, Gehazi cheated this prophet of God, and Elisha cursed him, and he got the leprosy that Naaman had. Another miracle is that he recovered the borrowed axe head from the waters. You remember the axe head, somebody was cutting a tree near a river, and the axe head broke and fell into a river, but he did a miracle and retrieved it. Another thing is that he cast 42 boys who were laughing at the prophet of God. Something very funny is that Prophet Elisha was a bald-headed man. And you see, we had 42 boys who were laughing at him. And he cast them, and 2 she-bears fed on them. Another miracle is that he asked God to strike the Syrian army, and they became blind. Now, Prophet Elisha performed twice the miracle that Prophet Elijah performed. Now, we are told that Prophet Elisha had powers even at his deathbed, and that anybody who was sick and will touch the bed will get healed immediately. So this is something very striking about this prophet. With that, we have handled all prophets that you are supposed to know, that is in your syllabus. I want to remind you, I want to ask you that you can replay this video as many times as you can in order to get acquainted with the information about prophets in the Bible. Goodbye.